Hey there, traveler, and welcome back to the GameDev Tavern. Grab a comfy seat and make yourself at home while we create games together. My name is Nicholas, and this is episode 11 of the tutorial series where we create a pixel art beatemup game in Godot. Welcome back. So today we're going to start the session by fixing a couple of mistakes that we've made. First of all, let's just clear those warnings. So here it says that we're not using this delta parameter, so we're going and have an underscore. Then if we hop over into the character script, you might have noticed a few mistakes along the way. One of them being the fact that right now we're saying, can you pick up a knife? And the only thing we're checking is if the person doesn't have a knife. We're actually not going to allow the player to have both a knife and a gun. So similarly here, we'll just want to check if the player is carrying anything, and we'll want to prevent the player from picking up something. So let's go ahead and have a new function. Func is carrying weapon. This is a bool, and we'll return either has knife or has gun. So we'll be using this method here to make sure we're not carrying anything, in which case we can return true. The second mistake you may have seen is here. When we're picking up the collectible, right now we're not doing this because we haven't instantiated the gun. We're going to be doing this today, but we would have found out that this would have actually created a knife object on the player rather than a gun. So go ahead and fix this, and this is had gun equals true. Okay, so now there's a couple of things we want to do today to polish and finalize the gun aspect of the weapon. First, we'll want to provide an ability for players and for enemies to drop it on the floor so that it can be picked up. And then second, we'll want to make sure that the player doesn't have unlimited ammo. So we'll prevent the player from shooting more than 3 bullets, and then they'll just throw the gun at the enemy. And we'll have something very similar to how we're throwing the knife, and it will just cause some damage as well. So for this, we'll need to start by creating the gun scene, similar to how we created the knife scene. One quick thing I want to do before that is, if you recall, in the character animations, we simplified those animations by removing every area monitoring and body monitoring from the animations themselves to simplify it and align it with the various states. I think we should probably just keep that paradigm across the board. So if you hop over to the knife scene, which we had created, currently it has a bunch of animations where we still have the monitoring and monitorable set in the animations. We'll just go ahead and remove all of that and write that as part of the code. So let's go ahead and remove on all of the animations the various properties that are monitoring and monitorable. And here we'll want the monitoring state for the damage emitter to be equal to the state equals fly. And for the areas monitorable state to be only enabled when the state is grounded. Okay, so we can actually hop into the collectible code. And in the process method here, we'll go ahead and write this. So this is monitorable when the state equals state.grounded, which means that we can pick it up. And then the damage emitter should be monitoring only when the state is fly. Okay, with that done, we'll go ahead and create a new inherited scene. Hop over to scene, new inherited scene. We'll pick the collectible, go ahead and rename this to gun, and save it to the same folder in our props folder. Hop into the 2D view, and let's go ahead and start adding the sprite. Click into the collectible sprite and look for the gun sprite. Take that image and drag it over into the texture. Let's just remove the offset and just do the offset ourselves. This should be -8, -8. So let's go ahead and set up some properties for the object. So here we'll do 3 points of damage when this is being thrown at a different character. Let's make this a little bit bouncier when it drops, and then let's make this a type gun. Next, we'll want to specify the collision shape. This is for picking up the item. And we'll go ahead and keep this shape, which is 20 by 20. We'll just bring it up a little bit. Next, hop over into the damage emitter. Let's first make sure that we're looking for the right mask. So both the player and the enemies will be able to receive the gun when it's thrown, and we'll also have the invisible wall so that it disappears automatically. Right click and editable children. Let's go ahead and create a collision shape. We'll go ahead and make a small rectangle similar to the knife. We'll make it 3 by 3. Next, we'll need to start creating some animations. So let's hop over into the animation player and create a new animation. We'll call this one fall, animation by default. This is the fall animation when the object gets spawned. We'll make it rotate backwards and let's set a snap to 0.1. So we'll have 4 frames. We'll just play around with the rotation of the object. So let's go ahead and create a new track on the rotation with 0. And then at 0.1, we'll go backwards 90 degrees. So set another keyframe, hop over to 0.2 and set that keyframe to -180. Then go to 0.3 and set a keyframe at -270. Make sure to click on discrete if you want, and then you can just double check that this is working properly. Okay, next up we'll create another animation. This one is called grounded. When it's on the ground, we'll just set the rotation to 0 and just set a keyframe. And this is going to be an animation that loops at 0.1. Next up, we'll have a new animation called fly, and this is when it's being thrown by a character. And so this will be 0.2. We'll just make it rotate clockwise this time, but go a lot faster. So let's start at rotation 0, hop over to 0.05 and go to 90 degrees. Same thing at 0.1, you increment by 90 degrees as well. And finally here at 270 degrees. Okay, let's make sure to pick discrete. And this is an animation that loops as well. So just go a lot faster than the fall animation. Okay, with that done, we can now hop over into the script. And whenever we are currently making those objects disappear from the player and the character because they are being hit, we'll actually have them drop on the floor. So hop over into the character script and go into the on receive damage. So here, whenever we're losing the knife, we'll actually emit a global signal. Spawn collectible, and this requires a couple of parameters. The first one is the type of collectible. So here this is going to be a collectible of type knife. The second parameter is going to be the initial state. So here we'll make it fall so that it just falls to the ground. We'll need the current position, so we'll use the player's position, and then the current direction. So because it's just going to go vertical, we'll just set that to vector2.0. And finally the height, we don't need that because we also already have a knockdown intensity. Let's do the same thing for the gun, and we'll just swap the collectible type for the collectible type gun. Okay, we can try this out. Okay, and here as we shoot the enemies, you can see the weapons just being dropped on the floor. See if I get shot myself. I also dropped the weapon, I'm able to pick it up. So everything seems to be working properly. I am seeing some errors here in the console, so we'll be looking at that right away. Actors container can't change the state while flushing queries. Okay, so here Godot is complaining that actors container, which is the main node where we're putting all of the actors that need to be Y sorted, that node is trying to make some computations at the very same time as we're trying to add a new child into it, in this case either the knife or the gun. And it's basically asking us to wait until the end of the frame to add the child. And so we can do that by using a method called callDeferred, which takes the first argument, the name of the method, and then the remaining arguments that will be passed to that method. So by doing this, we should get rid of all of the errors. Let's just double check. All right, so that seems to be working properly. Okay, so next we want to make sure that the player doesn't have an animated weapon. So we'll go ahead and hop over back into the character script. Let's hop over all the way to the top and we'll create a new export variable. And we'll call this max ammo per gun. So the enemies will have unlimited ammo, but the player will only have 3 shots every time they pick up a gun. So let's also keep track of the number of ammo left. And when we go over into the player scene, we'll set the max ammo per gun to 3 bullets. So next, when we pick up the gun, we'll need to reset the number of bullets. So back in the character, hop over into the pickup collectible. There we go. And here, when we're picking up a gun, we'll just want to set the number of ammo left to the max ammo per gun. Okay, next, hop over into the player scene. And here we'll want to allow the player, who's going to be the only one allowed to throw the gun after the number of ammo has gone to 0. So if we have a gun, let's first check if we have some ammo left in the gun. If we do, we will go ahead and shoot the gun. And we'll remove 1 ammo from the gun. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and throw the gun. So state.throw. So this means that when we are in the onThrow complete state, we now can have not just a knife, but a gun as well. So let's go ahead into the character scene, into the onThrow complete. And here we'll need to make this a little bit more generic because now we can have a gun as well. So first, let's go ahead and define a collectible type. By default, we'll set this to a knife. If we have a gun, we'll set this to a gun. Okay, we'll remove the gun from the inventory. Otherwise, we'll remove the knife from the inventory. And let's make the next 2 variables a little bit more generic. So here we'll call this collectible, global position, collectible height. And so here, rather than passing just a knife, we'll just pass the collectible type. And here we'll pass the collectible global position and collectible height. Okay, with that done, let's make sure that when we pick up something on the ground, when we pick up an ammo on the ground, we only have 3 bullets. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'm throwing it. Okay, perfect. The next thing that we'll want to do is make sure that if the player drops the gun, it doesn't become something where 3 new bullets spawn out of nowhere. We'll need to make it so that when the player loses its weapon, the weapon falls on the ground, but then disappears off from the view. So one easy way to set this up would be to pass in a new property as part of the collectible to have it self-destroy when it lands on the ground. That way it can never be picked up. So let's go ahead and start doing this. We'll hop over and add a new exported property. Let's call this auto destroy. And the way it'll be used is when it lands on the ground, we'll go ahead and free the object from the scene tree. Okay, next we'll need to pass this argument as part of the actors container. So we'll need it as part of the global signal. So go into the entity manager, and at the end of the spawn collectible, let's go ahead and add a new argument called auto destroy, which is going to be a boolean. Then into the actors container, here we'll also want to pass in that same argument in the signature and pass it as part of the properties of the collectible that we generate. Okay, and next we'll just need to figure out where we are emitting the signal. I believe everything is coming from the character. So let's go ahead and find all of the instances of spawn collectibles. And there's 3 of them. The first one here, when we're throwing an object, we don't want it to disappear, so let's mark this as false. And the other 2 is when we are losing the object. So now the enemies losing their objects will just make them drop and stay permanent on the ground, but the player is the one where we want them to disappear. So because this differs for the player and the enemy, we'll go ahead and create another property all the way at the top. And this is not ordered properly. Let me just bring this here. And then here, let's go ahead and type var auto destroy drop, set a boolean, and for the player, we'll go ahead and set that to true. By default, it'll be set to false for the enemies. Okay, so when we do drop something, here we'll want to pass whether that property is true or false. Okay, and with that done, I believe that we should be able to try this out. So enemies are dropping and things are staying on the ground, but when I drop mine, it disappeared from the view. So then I can go and shoot 1, 2, 3 times, throw it up. But if I ever get hit when I have a weapon, it disappears. Okay, so that's working great. The last thing we can do for the sake of consistency is have that collectible slowly disappear before it hits the ground if it's meant to be auto-destroyed. So that's similarly to the enemies who slowly disappear, and other objects like the barrel who slowly disappear before they get destroyed. We'll do the same thing for the collectible. So hop over into the collectible code, and here while it's falling, we'll go ahead and set the modulate. So if we are in auto-destroy, then we'll set the modulate.alpha, and we'll remove delta. So it'll take about a second to disappear. And we can try this out briefly. So as soon as I lose my gun, it should disappear while it's falling. There we go. Okay, next we'll want to provide the ability for the barrels to contain some of those contents so they can drop when we hit the barrels. So let's hop back over into the barrel, and we're going to create a new exported variable at the top. We'll call this content type, and this is going to be of type collectible.type. And when we are getting destroyed here, we'll want to emit the global signal, which is going to be very similar to what we have here when we drop it when a character gets hurt. So let's go ahead and just paste that content, and we'll want to modify a couple of things. First here, we'll want to specify the content type, and then lastly, we won't want it to disappear. So with that done, we can hop back into the world scene, and we're going to take this first barrel and have it drop a gun. And we'll go ahead and duplicate it at the bottom, and we'll have that one drop a knife. So we can go ahead and try this out. Okay, here's the knife from the first one, and here's a gun from the second. So next we'll be able to create a third type of enemy, and we'll have one enemy be a default melee enemy, the second one will be a default knife enemy, and then the third one will be a default enemy for using the gun. So let's go ahead and get rid of this second barrel, and for this we just need to create a new inherited scene, and we'll go ahead and hop back into the characters, and we will take the basic enemy. Let's rename this thug enemy. Press Ctrl S to save. We'll save it here. And then here, let's set some additional defaults. So the duration between melee attacks will make that 1500. Between range attacks, we'll make this 2500. We'll keep those two here. And then we will keep this to off. Let's have damage set to 3. Damage gunshot, let's keep it at 5. And duration grounded 1000. Let's make this 1300. It'll be slow to respawn. And then let's make sure that the character has a gun. Okay, and max health is 20, speed is 25. I guess you could always play with these as well. So let's back over into the main scene. And here we're going to remove this knife. We have our basic enemy. Let's go ahead and remove both of those. And we'll go ahead and add all three types. So basic enemy, we'll bring him here. So this guy is going to go melee. We'll bring in a goon enemy. And this guy should have a knife by default. And finally, we'll bring in a thug enemy. And we'll bring this person down to behind the player. So now we should have a varied gameplay with 3 different types of enemies. But we shouldn't have the player have a knife or a gun to start with. And then we'll make sure that all of those enemies have the player assigned to them. Okay, and so now we're starting to have a little bit of a more varied gameplay. The knife thrower on the side. There you go. So it's starting to look a little more like a nice beat 'em up. One thing you may have noticed that is odd is that the characters that can respawn knives can also pick up objects on the ground, which makes it that as soon as they get rid of those objects, they automatically have knives onto them. So we can get rid of that behavior. Let's scroll into the script and into the character script, go into the can pick up collectible, and here if we can respawn knives, and we'll just return false. Okay, so next we'll go ahead and create a new type of collectible, which is going to be probably the easier type. We're just going to make some food item, and our player will have the ability to pick up some food from the trash barrels, I guess, which is something that people do in beatemup games. So hop over into scene, let's create a new inherited scene, and scroll down into props and pick it the collectible. Let's go ahead and rename this food. Hop over into the 2D view. Go ahead and Control S to save, and we'll save this in the same spot as the other props, call it init food. Then let's go ahead and set the proper sprite. So in your arts folder, locate the chicken image and just drag this into the texture. Let's go ahead and remove the centered offset, and we'll bring this to -8 and -8. Okay, next we'll go ahead and hop back into the food item here. So this won't cause any damage, shouldn't auto destroy. Let's make this 80 so it doesn't bounce too much, and let's make sure the type is set to food. And then let's hop over into the collision shape, making sure that this can get picked up properly. Create a new rectangle shape, and let's bring this up a little bit. And in the food, we want to make sure that only the player can pick up the item, so remove the enemy bodies. And next up, we'll have a couple of animations. So we'll create an animation for falling. This will be 0.4, and it will be a looped animation. Similarly to the other collectibles, we'll have that just rotate. So let's go ahead and hop over into the collectible sprite in the transform and set a keyframe for 0 and 90 degrees at 0.1, then 180 degrees at 0.2, and 270 at 0.3. And then I will go ahead and make this animation discrete, and you can try this and make sure that it works properly. Next, it'll fall to the ground, so let's create an animation called grounded, which will be an animation that lasts 0.1, which will loop, and we'll just keep the rotation at 0 when it lands to the floor. Okay, with that done, we actually just need to implement a couple of things. So first of all, when we are in the character script, we'll want to make sure that when we pick up the collectible, it has the desired effect. So upon pickup collectible here, we'll have a new type of collectible, which will be of type food. And here we will want to set the current health to the max health. And just to make sure that this works properly, because we haven't implemented the health bar in the UI yet, we'll just go ahead and print the amount of health before and after the food has been picked up. We'll also need to make sure that we can pick up the collectible. So if we scroll back up in this, we'll need to have a rule for the type of food. And for now, you can implement something that's a little bit smarter to say, like, if you already have max health, we wouldn't allow the player to collect it. For now, I'll just go ahead and return true and give the ability for the player to just pick up the item if they want to. Okay, so with that done, we'll hop over into the actors container. We'll need to create a new type of collectible, which is of type food. And here we'll just preload the food scene, so that way we can instantiate it as needed here. And with that done, we can hop back over into the world view. Let's hop into the 2D view, and let's take this barrel here and have it create some food item. And then let's go ahead and get some damage. There we go. We'll go ahead and pick up the food. And you can see on the left-hand side, we start at 28, and then we went up to 30. So let's go ahead and remove those print statements. So with all of the collectible code completed, we have pretty much all of the gameplay elements done. And there's just a couple of tweaks that I want to do. First, I wanted to fix how the combo worked for the player. Right now, you can see that the combo is a pretty powerful tool. And if you get hurt, you'll still maintain where you were in your combo. And if you jump or jump kick, you also maintain that state. And this is something that we want to change. We want to keep the last combo attack as a powerful attack. And so we'll want the player to earn this by making sure that the only way they can get it is by having just straightforward attacks on the ground. So for that, let's hop over into the player, and we will do a couple of things. First, we will want to say that if you jump or if you jump kick, then we will go ahead and set the attack combo back to 0. So typically when you jump, this is the only place where you need to add it, because if you jump kick, that means you've already jumped. So we don't need to add it there. And then second, we'll also hop over into the character script. And then when we receive damage, so on receive damage, here we'll also want to set the combo back down to 0. The other thing that we'll want to do is we'll also want to encourage the player to go at the enemies at a pretty consistent pace and reward them by increasing the amount of combo over time. So for this, we'll also keep track of time. How much time has elapsed since the player has successfully hit an enemy? And if too much time has elapsed, then we'll reset the combo as well. So this is going to be something that's very specific to the player and not to the enemy. So we'll go ahead and enter some logic as part of the player script. And if you scroll to the top, we'll want to make this as part of something we'll do every frame. So it's going to be part of the process method. And because the player class inherits from character class, which already has a process method, we'll go ahead and call that character's process first. And then next we'll do our own custom logic here. So here, let's go ahead and call this process time between combos. And let's start by creating this method. We'll keep it empty for now. Okay, so we'll need two things. We'll need to have a new exported variable where we can enter in the properties how much time we think is a good amount of time for resetting that combo. So let's go ahead and create a new exported property. Let's call this max duration between successful hits. And this is going to be an integer, the number of milliseconds. And for everything that tracks time, we'll need to have some form of timestamp. So let's go ahead and create a time since last successful attack. We'll initialize this to the current time frame. Okay, so when we do have a successful attack, we'll want to set this timestamp. This happens here when we have a successful hit. Let's make this the current time. And now the only thing we'll need to do in this process method is check whether the current time minus the last time where we had a successful attack. If this is greater than that max duration that we've set up in the properties, then we'll go ahead and reset the combo to 0. There we go. And if you hop over into the player scene, we'll go ahead and set this to 2 seconds. And I can see there's just a ton of properties here. We'll go ahead and clean this up right after. And hop back into the world scene, make sure that, okay, let's save first. And then in the world scene, make sure that your player, every time you insert a new property, by default, it will override what has been created in the base class. So let's go ahead and remove this so that we're back to 2 seconds. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this out. So whenever I jump, whenever I get hurt, whenever I wait too long, I should reset my combo. Okay, so I just jumped and now it resets it. Okay, let's see if I get hurt. And now it resets it. Okay, and lastly, if I wait too long, okay, if I can get to this guy. Oh my gosh. There we go. Okay, and I'm gonna wait. And I'm back to reset. Okay, great, so this works well. So with all of this done, we actually have a few minutes and we'll go ahead and do a little bit of housekeeping here. You can see on the right hand side, there's a ton of properties and Godot actually provides a nice and handy way to classify things under various labels or even groups or subgroups. So let's go ahead and talk about this for a second. Let's hop over into the character scene and here all the way to the top, let's go ahead and start by introducing the export category. Here we'll call this category. When you save, you'll see that it creates a new category below the character. And so this is a nice way to organize top folders within the base class. But then you can also have another annotation called export group, which allows you to group everything that is below under a single group. So similar to how we currently have the floor and moving platform and collisions as part of the character body 2D, we can also create our own groups. And even more, you can, if you have a ton of properties, you can even create a subgroup within that group. And when you save this, every properties that is below the subgroup will belong to that subgroup. So it's now kind of a nested folder under that group folder. So we'll go ahead and create maybe just 2 groups. We'll have one group to keep track of the movement and another group to keep track of the weapons. All right, so as part of the weapons, we want to keep the auto destroy. Can respawn will actually keep this as part of the top level. And then damage will also bring this at the top. This is something that's pretty critical. Can respawn knives, this is part of the weapons, we'll keep this here. Damage gunshot as well, damage power as well. Duration grounded, this is part of the movement. Duration between knives respawn is also between part of the weapons. Flight speed is part of movement. And then has gun, has knife, jump intensity will bring up to movement. Knockback and knockdown will bring as part of the movement. Max ammo per gun, max health. Let's bring the max health all the way to the top. And then speed, let's bring this to movement. Okay, and with that done, now every character only has basically 3 core items that you can set, and then you can just go hop over into the categories to make some changes there. So this is just a nice handy way within Godot to allow you to control a little bit more what is happening inside the property in the editor. Alright, and this is going to be it for this episode. We did a lot of tweaking to various gameplay elements today, so it may have felt a bit all over the place, but I wanted to make sure we had all of those in place before setting up our full level and fine-tuning the level of difficulty. But if you have any questions about today's code, please go ahead and ask them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to respond quickly. Now we have one final big piece of gameplay left, which is adding a boss enemy type, and we'll do that in the next episode. Thanks again for watching the GameDev Tavern YouTube channel, and I hope that these episodes are fun for you to go through. I'm still trying to figure out what is the best way to present the content, so if you have any suggestions, please send those over through the comment section as well. Don't forget to support the channel using the like and subscribe buttons, and once I reach 1,000 subs, I'll have you pick the nature of the next tutorial series. Time to take a quick break, and I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers!